Hello, everyone. This is Susan Howard, Program Director of the Osher Lifelong Learning Institute at the Johns Hopkins University. On behalf of the entire Osher staff, welcome to the Fall 2023 preview. I'm excited for you to see the wonderful classes we have lined up in the fall, but before we do that, I want to share a few program details. In September, we'll continue to offer in-person and virtual classes. I'm pleased to let you know that we will continue the Conversations with Marvin Kalb series, as well as special events and field trips associated with our classes. Osher at JHU classes meet in person Monday through Thursday at our locations in Baltimore, Columbia, and Montgomery County. In addition, we offer virtual classes via Zoom Monday through Thursday. On the days we meet, we have a morning and an afternoon session for 6 or 12 weeks. Our fall classes begin on Monday, September 18th, and registration for those classes opens on Friday, June 16th. You can register through the beginning of classes and 2 weeks into the semester, as long as we have room in the classes you select. There are 5 ways to register, and you can find that information on our website at osher.jhu.edu or by calling Program Assistant Jackson Berger at 301-294-7058. This semester, our catalog will be mailed out to all Osher members, prospects, and inquiries. Please register as soon as possible to make sure you get into the courses you want. If you have questions, please reach out to us in an email to osher@jhu.edu or call Program Coordinator Emily Owens at 301-294-7048. We will respond to your request as soon as possible. We are extremely grateful for our faculty members who recorded the videos you are about to watch. And this main event is made possible by faculty member Stan Levin. Thank you, Stan, for sharing your time and talents with us in creating this documentary of our classes each year. In closing, I'd like to thank all of you for joining us today. We appreciate your support of the Osher at JHU program, and we look forward to seeing you this fall. And now, please enjoy the preview.
Hello, my name is Gidon Amir, and I'm going to teach a course on the Psalms in the Hebrew Bible. Traditionally, the Psalms are associated with King David. Supposedly, he is the one who composed them. But once you start to read the Psalms, you realize that the Psalms is actually a collection of poems that have been written, some of them before the time of King David and many of them after the time of King David. But that's the tradition is that he is the one who wrote them. In the Hebrew Bible, there are 150 Psalms. The Christian tradition, starting with the Greek translation of the Bible, is that there is also Psalm 151. We cannot study all the Psalms, there are too many of them, but we will look quite at many of them, and when we read them, we will look at what does the Psalm trying to tell us. We'll try to see if we can make historical connections between historical events that are described in the Bible and the Psalms and so forth. This is translation of poetry is challenging. And therefore, one of the things that we will try to do is also to look at different translations of the Psalms in order to gain some idea about what did the translator think when they made the translations. And therefore, I hope that many people who come to this class will bring some old Bibles from their grandmother or something like this that will allow us to look at many, many different versions of the same psalm. So I'm looking forward to see many of you in September. Goodbye.
Hi. Do you wonder where humans came from, how we evolved, where we evolved? Come join me in my physical anthropology class in Columbia, Mondays from 10 until 12 in the fall semester, so we can explore genetics, the forces of evolution, and a bunch of fossil samples that'll give you the full picture. I look forward to seeing you there.
Hello, everyone. My name is Saul Lilienstein, and the course I'm going to be teaching is called The Symphony Goes On. You say, well, where did it go? The great works that are found at the beginning of the 20th century. And I say the beginning of the 20th century because something got in the way of the beautiful romantic world. And we know it was called the First World War. So we're going to be listening to those works written by 3 composers. They were all born at the same time, or within a few years of each other. Claude Debussy, Richard Strauss, Gustav Mahler. And amongst those 3, we have the richness of late Romanticism. I'm looking forward to sharing the richness of all of that with you, either on Mondays or on Thursdays in the morning. And the pleasure, I hope, will be shared by many. Thank you so much.
Hello, my name is Dr. Linda Yuriko Kato. I'll be teaching the course Women of China, A Her Story. You will hear about the often overlooked lives and contributions of women to the glories of ancient through 18th century China. I use beautifully illustrated PowerPoints and video clips. No homework, no need to take notes. I send you all of my PowerPoints and presentation notes. Just sit back and enjoy. Guys are very welcome. Look forward to seeing you all this fall. Thank you.
Howdy, my name is Chris Stevenson, and I'll be teaching Our Stories Exploring Memoir Writing. I've been helping people put words to paper for almost 11 years now. This will be my 2nd time doing this workshop for Osher. It was very popular last time, and I hope it will be this time. We all have our stories to share. Let's get yours down. Join us for 6 weeks, starting October 30th at the Cultural Arts Center at Ingleside at King Farm, bright and early from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. I can't wait to see you there.
I'm Robert Bourget, and I'll be teaching a course on the short stories of Joyce Carol Oates that's been collected in a volume called The Other You. The interesting thing about these short stories is that she is interested in taking a decision that could have gone one way or the other and looking at it and seeing what would have happened to the person if the person made the other decision and what the consequences might have been. And so each of the stories really uses that as a backdrop. Again, it's if I had lived a little differently, made a different decision, what would things have been like, as opposed to how things are like now. I think you'll really enjoy the class. I'm looking forward to teaching it, and I'm looking forward to seeing you there and getting your responses to her ideas and interact with you about those ideas. I think it'll be very stimulating.
Hello, my name is Naomi Darrenblum. In this fall, I will be teaching The Dreyfus Affair, a story of Europe, nationalism, and anti-Semitism at the Village in Rockville. This course explores the Dreyfus Affair, not just as a 19th century case of unfair and unfounded prosecution, but also as a preview of the horrors of the intersection of nationalism and anti-Semitism in 1930s France and Europe. We will be using a wide variety of materials in the course, including art and archival material that has been made available by the French state recently, but we'll rely mostly on a book by Jean-Denis Bredin, which is a fantastic book. Reads really like a legal thriller, but is the most exhaustive and reliable account of what happened to Dreyfus and how it transformed France during this time period. I hope to see you in the fall.
Hi everyone, my name is Guillaume Desion, G for short, easier to pronounce, and I'm inviting you to a history of the space program this fall. Why is it that we're so space-minded in this nation? After all, the space age is very recent. It began in October 1957 with the launch of Sputnik 1. But if you checked, polls in the late 1940s, you'd find that Americans were certainly not thinking about space. They were more interested in radio, the early noises being made about possible color TV. So why is it that we've become so interested in space and hoping, for example, for Mars exploration? Is it science fiction? Oh, certainly that plays a role. Okay. But what else is involved in that? And so to find out, I'm inviting you to rediscover some of the great events associated with the space program. Obviously, the first man in space, but also the race to the moon. And then, of course, carry on with the space shuttle and the International Space Station, which is still orbiting above us. To do so, of course, we'll have a mix of conversation, but also we'll look at some documents that are now available online, very interesting primary sources about how difficult or how challenging it was and rewarding it was for many to be involved in this space program. So I look forward to seeing you this fall. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Ralph Ruban. I'm the Baxley Professor and Director of the Department of Pathology here at Johns Hopkins. And it's a real pleasure to give a series of talks for the Osher courses. My series will be based on a book that I just recently wrote with my colleague Will Lindner. It's called The Scientific Revolution, 10 Men and Women Who Reinvented American Medicine. Now, I don't receive royalties for this book. This is a book that came very much out of the pandemic, where we were being torn apart by the pandemic. I wanted to share stories that bind us together. And indeed, David Brooks had a wonderful piece in the New York Times about shared stories. And he wrote, "Great nations thrive by constantly refreshing the stories we tell ourselves." These stories give us a sense of who we are, what we find admirable, and what kind of world we hope to build together. So a scientific revolution is about 10 shared stories. They're just 10 incredible people. The arcs of their lives, I think, are so inspiring. And they're the 10 that transformed American medicine into modern science-based medicine. I hope you join me for the series of lectures that I'll be giving in the fall. Again, it's based on a scientific revolution, 10 men and women who reinvented American medicine. Thanks.
In the fall, I will be teaching a course entitled Saddle Up Pilgrim, the John Ford, John Wayne Western. My name is Melissa Hilbish. John Ford and John Wayne only made 14 films together and only 9 Westerns. It seems like a lot more than that, but it was only 9 Westerns, beginning with Stagecoach in 1939 and completing the trajectory with The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance in 1962. So in this course, we'll be considering 3 films: Stagecoach, which introduced John Wayne as a major player in the Western market. And here you see him featured standing in front of John Ford's signature landscape of Monument Valley. We'll then move on to The Searchers, which is John Wayne's favorite film and is a very flawed, heroic character in this film, a highly nuanced film, and again, one of John Wayne's favorites. And then we'll conclude the course with The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance, which includes Jimmy Stewart in the role of the Eastern Tenderfoot, which he will play a number of roles in John Ford Westerns in this type of role. And the major focus for the class is we'll focus on the landscape of the West and how it's presented through the American Western. We'll define the Western formula within the classic period of Hollywood between 1930 and 1960. We'll look at the construction of the Western, what elements are used by various filmmakers to create this entity called the Western formula, the Western genre. Behind all of this is the idea of the American West and national character, national mythology, as a part of our national character and how we think of ourselves as a people and a country, and how does the American West fit into this concept. So that'll be underlying all three films. I hope you'll join me in the fall. And again, my name is Melissa Hilbish, and this is Saddle Up Pilgrim.
My name is Dave Hatch, and I'm hosting and teaching a class I call American Trivia. It's an interesting look at how Americans have lived, how we have changed our lifestyle. We will look at a wide range of different things. For example, the American language. The British spell the word color, C-O-L-O-U-R. We have a more economical way of spelling it. Want to know why? Well, we'll discuss that. We'll discuss American food. If I offered you a gallimaufry, would you smile or punch me in the snoot? We'll discuss American entertainment. We'll even look at American comic books and comic strips. Shazam! Anybody remember Captain Marvel? His comic books advertised him as the world's mightiest mortal. But there was one thing more powerful than Captain Marvel, and we'll find out what it is. I believe this course will be a lot of fun. There'll be a lot of nostalgia, but there is a serious purpose. I think we will find out who the American people are, how we have changed over a couple of centuries, and why we are and do things the way we are today and do today. So I hope you'll join me for this class. I'm excited about it, and I hope you will be too.
Hi, I'm Lana Portolano. You might have heard of slow fashion or slow food. These are countercultural movements and ways to slow down and pay attention and really appreciate these important but sometimes taken for granted parts of life. Well, I think that reading poetry should be approached in the same manner. So I hope you'll join me for this first in a series of in-person seminars on individual great poets called Slow Read Poets. For this first class in the series, we'll take a deep, slow dive into the poetic world of New England poet Robert Frost. You probably remember The Road Not Taken from your high school English class, but we're going to experience so much more of this great American icon. In each class session, we'll read together and savor a selection of Frost's poems, while also learning about his life and his influences. So I hope you'll join me.
Hi, my name is Rich Barrett, and this fall I will teach a class on consciousness, the hard problem. Consciousness is a central part of our lives and our identity, and yet we hardly even know how to define it. In this class, we will explore what neurologists, psychologists, philosophers, and theologians have to say about what consciousness is, where it comes from, and where it's headed. Along the way, we will discuss altered states of consciousness, seances, near-death experiences, and other strange aspects of consciousness. Please join us in Columbia this fall for a class that I've taught before, and I think you'll find it very interesting.
My name is Stan Levin, and in the fall, I will be teaching a class called Those Wild and Crazy 21st Century Comedies. We're nearly a quarter of the way through the 21st century, long enough to reflect the social changes. After all, the purpose of comedy is to show a funhouse mirror to society, particularly its sensitive issues. What I've noticed is the dominant feature of American movie comedy in the 21st century is there are no dominant features. You see a lot of social chaos. Things are changing. Who are the new comic talents on either side of the camera? What do filmmakers consider funny now? We have Tina Fey and her Mean Girls, Tyler Perry and his drag performance as Medea, death as a source of humor. For example, Death at a Funeral or Shaun of the Dead. Gone are the boy meets girl comedies replaced by boy meets boy comedies. Women and minorities have a greater presence now than in the 20th century. Through film clips and lectures, we will explore the changing talents and attitudes in 21st century movie comedies. I'll be teaching Mondays in person at Asbury Methodist Village and Tuesdays via Zoom. I promise to offend some and amuse others, but hey, it's all in the name of fun. See you soon.
Hi, this is Ernest Liotti, and I'm here to discuss a lecture series that I'll be doing in the fall called The Great Pianists. This is a sort of condensed version of the class that I taught at Peabody that ran an entire semester. But we will be discussing the history of recorded sound and how these pianists adjusted to the technology of the time. And we'll be discussing pianists like Paderewski, Arthur Rubinstein, Horowitz, people like Alfred Cortot, Myra Hess, Gina Bachauer, and we'll also be discussing sort of the heritage that these pianists brought with them. For instance, Rosina Levine was Van Cliburn's teacher, and some of these pianists also studied with the greats like Liszt and even Czerny. And we'll go into maybe the 1960s and go into like Polini, Van Cliburn, and a tribute to the late Leon Fleischer. So I think you will enjoy it very much, and I hope to see you there. Thank you.
Hello, dear friends. My name is Vladimir Friedman, and I'm gonna hopefully meet you in the fall at my course about guitar. It's called Guitar, Multi-Faced and Musical Journey. I will tell you about origination of guitar music and play it from the very old times, including even ancient Indian raga, which was kind of the first original guitar piece, I will tell this way. Then I will play some jazz music for you and talk about it. And I will play for you some klezmer music, which klezmer musicians play, and sing some Yiddish songs. Also, how it can be played on guitar. So I hope to see you soon. And actually, that's it. I would play for you something now, but probably it will take too much time. See you soon. See you in the fall.
Hello, OSHA members. I'm Joan Adams, and in the fall, we're going to be taking a little trip through the United States history from 1910 to 1919. We have titled this Tragedy, Tumult, War, Peace, and Prosperity. We tend to focus on the people, the places, and the events of the things that were happening during this time. Extremely important time in American history. We are leaving behind the Progressive Era and Teddy Roosevelt and moving into the Wilson era of more nationalism. There are some major movements that are taking place during this time period. Suffragettes movement gains momentum, great deal of movement still on the temperance movement, and daily life was changing quite a bit. More focus on the cities, and there were new things that were being developed that we still can't live without, like Oreo cookies and things like that. There was something probably we can all relate to. In this time period, we have an influenza pandemic. It changes the way Americans look at each other and change the world. But most significant, during this time period, we enter World War I. It was supposed to be the war that would end all wars. It was a chance for America to show its strength, and eventually it ends and we go into a lovely period of peace and prosperity. Hope you'll join us on this venture and the looking at these people and the places and the things that maybe were forgotten in the history books, or we just may have forgotten what we learned in high school. So I hope you will join me and other OSHA members in the fall for this journey in history from 1910 to 1919. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. I'm David Fisher, and I'm the author of Presidential Chronicles, a series of presidential biographies. And I'm going to be teaching Presidents and War this fall. You know, America's presidents are tested in war unlike any other aspect of the job. And for many American presidents, those tests first take place on the field of battle long before they reach the White House. In this course, we're going to peer into the nation's first 5 major military conflicts, seen through the lives and experiences of America's presidents. And we're going to explore how current and future presidents engaged in the Revolutionary War, the War of 1812, the Mexican War, the Civil War, and the Spanish-American War. From privates to officers to commanding generals to commanders-in-chief. You know, wars have been proving grounds that have tested the mettle of men who ultimately occupy the White House. Many thrived, some stumbled, all for making some great stories as we provide color and insight to American history. I hope to see you this fall for Presidents and War.
I am Chris Obam, and I'll be teaching advances in biotechnology this fall. The products of biotechnology impact our lives every day, particularly in the area of health. The advances in recent years have been amazing. Montgomery County is home to one of the largest concentrations of biotech companies and government research organizations in the U.S. In this course, we'll cover current topics in this exciting and growing area. Topics will include your microbiome in you and how you can improve your microbiome, an introduction to personalized medicine with a special emphasis on cancer and brain health issues, the possibilities of regenerative medicine now and in the future, an update on COVID-19, and a review of what biotechnology companies are doing in Montgomery County. The class will be lecture and discussion based. I look forward to seeing you in the fall.
Greetings, my fabulous Osher students. I have the privilege of teaching a very interesting course, 12 Pieces That Changed Music, more or less. And I'm very excited about this. What am I talking about in terms of 12 pieces that changed music? We're talking about watershed works. We're talking about works that were either hugely influential on other people because of their societal properties or hugely influential on other people because of their actual scores. Some examples of this, George Frederick Handel's Messiah, a work which has influenced every single Christmas during its life and since. And every single Easter, for that matter, too. Stravinsky's 3 ballets, Petrushka, The Rite of Spring, The Firebird, The Marriage of Figaro, maybe the most influential on the first modern opera ever. Beethoven's 3rd Symphony, Beethoven's 5th Symphony, Beethoven's 9th Symphony, Mozart's Jupiter Symphony. All of these pieces had a profound influence on society then and since. And so that's what we're going to be looking at, these amazing watershed works, these works that the classical music repertoire cannot live without, these works that literally changed music because they were so influential and so powerful, and from their very notes emerged some extraordinary things. Something to look forward to. I look forward to the fall with you. Thank you very much. And now, because we are at 1 minute and 27 seconds, it's time to go. Take care, be well, see you in the fall. Bye.
Hello again. I'm Eric McWilliams, the instructor for the Osher Great Books class. In the fall of 2023, we'll continue using the anthology titled The Scribner Anthology of Contemporary Short Fiction, which we began using last fall. It contains stories by Sherwood Anderson, Russell Banks, Franz Kafka, Virginia Woolf, and many, many other authors. We've gone through a dozen large anthologies in the last 15 years, but none of them provoked more spirited discussions than this one. Each story's discussion is often led by a volunteer member of the class, following the shared inquiry method promulgated by the Great Books Foundation. Under this method, the leader of the discussion does not lecture, but poses interpretive questions, which class members then answer based upon evidence that they find in the text. The objectives for this class are to increase not only our understanding of the stories and the authors who wrote them, but also our understanding of our own values and beliefs, and those of the other members of the class. In addition to being interesting, this increases the sense of community, which many of us value greatly. If a class of this kind appeals to you, please join us on Monday afternoons.
My name is Roger Brunyard.
I have devoted 50 years of my life to directing operas, that is, putting them on the stage in ways that make sense to modern audiences. Now, some operas virtually produce themselves if you simply do what the composer says, but I want to talk about those that don't, operas that present problems that people like me have to solve. Indeed, that is my working title, Opera Problems Solved, although you will see it listed as operatic rediscoveries. Why problems? Well, opera is an old medium. Tastes may have changed, styles certainly have. Many operas make societal assumptions very far from our own. Some may involve attitudes that are no longer acceptable. Such works demand interpretation, presenting them in a context that is as cogent to modern audiences as it was to the original ones. That's the fascination. None of the dozen works I've chosen come in the top 20, but we're not talking about minor rarities either. The composers will be of the likes of Handel, Mozart, Rossini, Verdi, Wagner. We'll discuss the problems in each case, but only as a prelude to watching their solution by brilliant directors in modern videos so good that you wonder why there was ever a problem in the first place. It is a course that will offer food for thought to people who already love opera, but also serve as an appetizer for beginners. The classes will be given in person on Tuesday mornings in the fall at Grace Church in Baltimore. Further details are posted on my red site that you see on the screen, www.brunyate.com. Thank you and look forward to seeing you.
This is George Shepper, and I am speaking to you about a class I'll be teaching next fall for the OSHA program. The dates of the class will be, well, we begin on Halloween, October 31st, and we go till December 12th. It's going to be the Maya world, ancient and modern, and it's going to be a real adventure because we're going to visit all the important Maya sites, Tikal in Guatemala, Palenque in Chiapas, Mexico, Copan in Honduras, and many sites in the Yucatan. And before we finish, we're also going to go into the historical period, and we're going to talk about Maya culture in historical times and in contemporary times. So I'm going to try to keep this class as interdisciplinary as I can. It will be an intensely illustrated set of lectures, and I'm very, very looking forward to and open to discussion about any of the topics that we cover, questions people have. So I look forward to seeing you next fall for the Johns Hopkins University OSHA program. So I look forward to seeing many of you then. And until then, be well, and so long for now. Bye-bye.
Hey there, it's me, Lana Portolano, again with a quick update about my poetry series. Last semester, in the Intro to Poetry series, OSHA members and I agreed that we really should have a Bob Dylan seminar in this series. So it's happening. We're going to be reading Bob Dylan's body of works. We will listen to his songs, we'll learn about his biography, and we'll be guided by this question: did Bob Dylan deserve to win the Nobel Prize in Literature? Hope to see some of you there.
Welcome, everyone. So Bob Hines here again for my fall semester. This one is on the causes, course, and results of the First World War. Really in many dimensions. Too often it's taught just from a European's perspective. We will have extensive sections on the Eastern Front, the Middle East, and even a subsection on Africa, looking at the cultural and economic aspects of this war, long-term implications, and even a little bit on the poetry from this war. So I'm looking forward to offering this fall class to all of you. Thank you.
So hello, everybody. I'm Nora Hammerman, and I'm giving a class this fall, both in person and on Zoom. And we'll try to pretend on Zoom that we're in person as much as possible. It's called The History of Florence. And the way I'm going to do it is it's going to be kind of an imaginary walking tour through the city as it was during different periods of its history, from the Middle Ages right up through the Renaissance, and a little bit the later rule of the Medici. I always like to think of a famous Hans Christian Andersen story called The Magic Galoshes, in which two witches, one of them experienced and one very young, decide that they're going to leave a pair of magic overshoes at a door and see who puts them on. When you put on the shoes, you are transported back to whatever you think would be the time in history when you would like to live. There are some very amusing results of this experiment, as people say, oh, I would like to live in the 17th century or whatever, and then find out there are no lights and no paved roads. So, of course, Florence is not frozen in time today. We have the city as it was left to us through many, many generations of change. But I'm going to approach it as if we were in it at each of the important decisive phases in its history. I will be giving an actual physical tour of Florence with Road Scrawler in November, which I hope some people will join. And I think this, if you are going on that trip, you'll really enjoy this introduction. And if you're not, you'll get a vicarious visit to Florence going down through its history.
Hi, everyone. My name is Rich Barrett, and this fall, I will be teaching a class on heroes and villains of the American labor union movement. We will meet philosophers, anarchists, assassins, tycoons, con men, and mobsters. We will learn about the exploitation of workers, the terrible conditions that they endured, the mine disasters, factory fires. We will cover major strikes, riots, gun battles with the military and the police. We will meet Emma Goodman, Andrew Carnegie, Jimmy Hoffa, and Mother Jones. Please join us this fall for a wild ride through a tumultuous chapter in American history.
Hi, I'm Steve Friedman, and I'm looking forward to welcoming you all to my class next fall, which is going to be about the other Broadway musical composers. There's a lot of them that, we know their music, we know their shows, but we don't necessarily think about who they are, like Bach and Harnick, Cy Coleman, even the contributions of Comden and Green or Marvin Hamlish. I mean, these people all really shaped the Broadway musical theater, and I thought it would really be fun to explore so many of the musicals that these wonderful people wrote. And those are just a few of some of who we'll talk about when we meet together by Zoom next fall. Looking forward to seeing you all there. And I hope we have fun learning about some of these other people you may not be aware of.
Hi, everyone. I'm Claudia Kalb. I'm thrilled to be teaching a course this fall called Interviews with Authors, Journalists on Their Subjects and Their Crafts. In this class, I've invited highly accomplished and seasoned journalists in for interviews with me and Q&As with you about their work. The books span a vast range of topics. Amy Doxer Marcus, Pulitzer Prize-winning Wall Street Journal reporter, on parents and doctors teaming up to find cures for children. Andy Nagorski, longtime foreign correspondent, whose latest book tracks Freud's escape from the Nazis. National Geographic editor Daniel Stone with his Page Turner about the Titanic after it sank. Business Week writer Susan Burfield on the relationship between Teddy Roosevelt and J.P. Morgan and American capitalism. We'll also hear from writer and cellist Adriana Barton about how music wires the brain, and from Larry Tye about the life and long shadow of Joseph McCarthy. And there'll be more to come. Each class will feature a conversation with me followed by questions from you. And my goal is that over 6 weeks, we'll learn about disparate subjects, engage in storytelling, have lively conversations, and just as importantly, explore how journalists do their work. It'll be a lot of fun, a lot of learning. I hope to see you in the fall.
Hi, I'm Alex Magoon, historian for the IEEE. In the fall, please join me to explore a life of television. Have you looked at your TV lately? Billions of households around the world have a television set, and now your phone is your personal TV station. How did we get here? What is television, anyhow? Over 6 weeks, we'll learn how inventors, entrepreneurs, regulators, and consumers took decades to enable the transmission of live images and sounds electronically. We'll review TV's development from its 19th century conceptions to its birth as an invention, its schooling and employment as an innovation, the spin-off technologies of its children, and finally, the death of TV as a discrete system in our digitized world. We'll examine the meaning of terms like invention and improvement, and consider the motivations of ingenious people like Vladimir Zworykin and David Sarnoff, who ignited the television industry. We'll look at the causes and consequences of this remarkable example of human creativity and the ways that the technology available at a given moment helped shape what we could watch. No reading required, it's television. See you in September.
Hello, I'm Dan Sherman. I'm here to talk about a course I'm going to be teaching for Johns Hopkins University's OSHA program. The course is going to be called Geniuses of Film. It will be taught beginning in September for 6 weeks. What we're going to do in this course is discuss 6 great geniuses of film. And we're going to begin with Charlie Chaplin, an iconic figure. We'll move on to Orson Welles, who gave us Citizen Kane. We'll focus on Citizen Kane, some of the innovations it made, but we'll talk about other films that Orson Welles did. We'll talk about the great Katharine Hepburn, one of the great actresses, an actress who had an incredible career, both in terms of duration, but just the range of what she did. We'll talk about Billy Wilder, who's one of the great writers, script writers of all time, but also a great director. We'll talk about Stanley Kubrick. Didn't make a lot of movies, but made very, very interesting movies. And I thought it would be a nice way to cap the course by talking about John Williams, who is 91, has had a fabulous career in music, really has made some great contributions, still at work. I look forward to seeing you in September. I will see you then.
Hello, everyone. I'm Dr. Pete Kakel, and I'm very excited about my fall course called The Vietnam War, a 21st Century Perspective. The emergence of new documentation following the Cold War has broadened and deepened our understanding of the Vietnam War from both communist and non-communist perspectives, leading to a large and still growing body of new scholarly work. Taking into account and foregrounding this recent scholarship, this course seeks to provide an informed and balanced introduction to the Vietnam War and to the major themes, trends, and debates of Vietnam War studies. Almost 5 decades after its end, the Vietnam War remains a central part of American political culture and a very much contested part of our nation's recent past. Whether you supported or opposed American involvement in Vietnam or were indifferent to it, you will benefit from a 21st century perspective on one of America's longest and most controversial wars, rightly called the war that will not go away. And so I invite you to join us in what promises to be an insightful, challenging, and eye-opening course. And look forward to seeing you this fall.
Oh, hi, I didn't see you come in. Seth Keibel here, just getting a little extra practice time on one of my horns. But since I have you, I'd like to encourage you all to sign up for my fall semester class, Bebop and Beyond. It's a jazz history class basically taking us from the end of the swing era, roughly the end of World War II to maybe the end of the 1960s. We're going to talk about the great pioneers of bebop, people like Charlie Parker, Dizzy Gillespie, Thelonious Monk. We'll get into some Miles Davis and of course, John Coltrane. We'll talk about pioneers of cool jazz, people like Dave Brubeck, one of my favorites, Stan Getz. There's going to be a lot of great music, some excessive drinking, drug abuse, sexual malfeasance. We'll probably also cover a lot of jazz history as well. So please sign up. It's going to be a lot of fun. See you there.
Hi, my name is Julie Kurzava, and I'm going to be a new instructor at the OSHA program at Hopkins this fall. I'm really excited about that. The class I'm going to be teaching is called The Collaborative World of Julie Stein, which makes sense because he was a songwriter and I'm a singer, an actor, a writer myself. And so the point of view I bring to my classes is as a singer, as a voice teacher, as a performer, and then also as a musician. So we'll be looking at Julie Stein's work. He was a songwriter for over 50 years. And the interesting thing about him is he collaborated with a wide variety of other artists. So we'll be taking detours down those roads to learn about the context of his work. He wrote songs for Frank Sinatra. He wrote Broadway musicals. He wrote film scores. So he's a really fascinating person with a very long and varied career. So I'm hoping that you'll join me. I'll be teaching in person, which makes me happy, at Grace United Methodist Church on Tuesday afternoons later in the fall. So please come.
Hello, my name is Greg Houston. I'm very excited to be teaching the What is Illustration course at the Johns Hopkins OSHR this fall. So what is illustration? Illustration is the communication of an idea through a visual means to an audience, usually for a purpose, generally for a client. The class will be focusing on illustration, how you create an illustration, what is a good illustration. We'll be talking a little about the evolution of illustration. I'll show you my work. I'm an illustrator and have been since 1988. I'll be showing you examples of illustrators whose work I admire and I think is important. We'll be talking about style. We'll be talking about medium, painting, drawing, digital. We'll be talking about composition and how that helps tell a story. We'll be talking about, light and shadow and all the cool, interesting stuff that makes an image worth looking at, number one, but more importantly for an illustrator, or certainly, maybe not more importantly, but certainly as important, helps tell a story, helps convey that message and get that idea across. So I hope you'll join me. I love illustrating, but man, I really love talking about illustration. And I really want to talk not at you, but to you. I want to hear what you have to say. I want to hear your thoughts about it. I really want it to be a conversation about illustration. So anyway, I hope you'll join me. I really look forward to it. And I guess I'll see you this fall.
I'm Franklin Knight, and I will be offering in the fall Understanding Contemporary Latin America and the Caribbean. This is a course which looks at how one understands our neighboring countries to the south of the United States. And I'm going to do two general lectures, one on the mainland countries and one on the Caribbean. I'll define those when we get to the class. And then I will look at 4 specific countries to emphasize that Latin America and the Caribbean is more than the countries with which you may be familiar and is quite actually complex, dynamic, and interesting. This will be an illustrated form of lecture, and I hope to see you join me in the fall as we look at these interesting countries and peoples around us.
Hi, everybody. I'm Don Ross. I'm here to talk about a course that I'm giving at Ollie in the fall titled Person James, which is a sort of an introduction to American pragmatism. It's really the only, I guess, native American philosophical system, I suppose, in history. So it's something that's kind of close to home for us. So I have them on the board here. Charles Sanders Peirce, C.S. Peirce, and that's P-E-I-R-C-E. It's pronounced like a purse you carry around, but not Pierce, but Peirce. 1839 to 1914. And then William James, of course, is really famous. I mean, he was the brother of Henry James. And he's just a little younger, 3 years younger than Peirce, 1842 to 1910. Now, William James, of course, is very well known. And that's partly because of his personality. I mean, he was a very gregarious kind of person, very popular on the lecture circuit. He was a professor at Harvard. It was the chair of philosophy and psychology, or psychology and philosophy, I forget which was which. We'll be talking about Peirce and his original formulation of the pragmatic theory of the pragmatism. And then we'll talk about James picking up on this, and he gave a series of lectures called Pragmatism. And then Peirce's reaction to all that, and then James' application of the pragmatic theory to philosophy of religion. So this is the essence of the great American contribution to the history of Western philosophy. So that's what we'll be doing in the fall. Should be very interesting. All right, see ya.
Hello, mystery lovers. Melinda Kramer here. I have something new for you for the fall of 2023, spy novels. The name of the class is Spy Novels, The Past is Never Dead, It's Not Even Past, with my hat off to William Faulkner, of course. Detective fiction demands that questions be answered and that justice be served. Spy fiction asks more questions than it answers, and it asks questions that have international as well as personal consequences. I know that there are a lot of mystery fans looking in on this video, but I also know there are a lot of spy novel fans too. We'll explore some of the questions answered and unanswered by reading and discussing some of the seminal spy thrillers from the past 100 years. We're going to begin with John Buchan's 39 Steps, which was published in 1915. Now, we know that Alfred Hitchcock took the title, if not the plot, for a very famous movie, but I think you're going to be interested in what Buchan's original really says. We're going to end with John le Carré's A Legacy of Spies, which was published about 100 years later in 2017. And in between, we're going to do 3 or 4 other espionage thrillers that I think you'll find interesting. Spy novels are more than just chase scenes, fortunately. And I promise you 6 weeks of fiction that is both heart-pounding and thought-provoking. So meet me on October 31st at 1 p.m. in the Black Rock Center for the Arts for our first class, and disguises are optional. See you then.
Thanks to the miracle of Zoom, I will have the pleasure of teaching a 12-session course on 6 biblical conundrums. My name is David Mayer-Levy. The 6 conundrums that we're going to be dealing with are, number 1, the creation story. How does it stack up against the modern scientific cosmology, astrophysics, astronomy understanding of how our universe got created? Then we'll turn to the story of the flood, Noah and the ark and all that stuff. And geology, geography, a little archaeology too, will give us some answers that might be very interesting. Then we'll get more into biblical history with the patriarchs, Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, and Joseph. What are the archaeological, Egyptological, and Assyriological evidence for the very existence of these prominent biblical figures? That will lead us to the Exodus. Did it happen? Could it even have happened? I mean, could the Nile turn to blood? Then we'll turn to the later biblical history of King David, King Solomon, and some of the kings of Israel and Judah during the period of what used to be known as the Israelite monarchy. Lastly, we'll turn our attention to the Dead Sea Scrolls, arguably the single most important archaeological discovery of the 20th century, and maybe the 21st too, we'll see. Those are the issues that we'll be discussing. Those are our 6 conundrums. And I look forward to seeing you in the not too distant future. David Mayer-Levy. By the way, I live in California. That's the miracle of Zoom.
Hi, my name is Bill Florman. I'm going to be teaching a 6-week class in Columbia. The first 6 weeks called 3 Classic Billy Wilder Films. Billy Wilder is really the quintessential American director, screenwriter and director, actually. And the irony is he's from Austria. He actually began as a reporter in Austria, then went on to become kind of a gigolo in a dance hall for a while, then went to Germany and started writing films, then came to the United States and became a very, very successful screenwriter. And only after a certain amount of time did he become not only a screenwriter, but a director and sometimes producer. He went on to make some of the greatest films in various genres. The 3 films that we're going to do, the first is Double Indemnity, which is probably the most influential film noir ever made, arguably the best film noir. He then goes on to make Sunset Boulevard, which is another film noir and maybe the best film ever made about Hollywood. We're also going to listen to some music from the musical of Sunset Boulevard. And finally, we're going to end with Some Like It Hot, which is arguably the greatest comedy ever made. In fact, AFI, the American Film Institute, rated it as the #1 comedy ever made. So we're going to see 3 great films in that class. And as always, I'm going to emphasize discussion. And I look forward to seeing you in the fall. Hi, my name is Bill Florman. In the second 6 weeks, I'm going to be teaching a course in Columbia called Growing Up at the Movies. Actually comes out of what's called the Bildungsroman tradition in literature. Novels like David Copperfield, Huck Finn, Catcher in the Rye. We're going to look at a collection of films that are about growing up, the relationship between children and parents, the relationship between childhood and society, questions of that sort. It actually is a continuation of a course that I was teaching in Columbia a few years ago when the pandemic hit and had to end the course in the middle. So we had seen films like Radio Days and Cinema Paradiso, and did not get to see the last 3 films that were originally in that course. First is a French film called Murmur of the Heart. Second, an English film, Billy Elliot. And again, that was made into a musical. And again, we're going to listen to some of the music from the musical. And then the cornerstone of the course is a film called Boyhood, which is actually filmed over a 12-year period and deals with 12 years in the life of a young boy. So I think that course will provoke a lot of interesting discussion, and I look forward to seeing you there.
Good morning, fellow Osherites. Roland Fraser here, and I've been renewed for another semester. This fall, at the Columbia campus, I will be looking at how photography became art. Photography is now recognized as a legitimate art form, but it was not always so. From its beginning, artists, especially painters, were dismissive of photography and saw it as a threat to real art. The critic Charles Baudelaire famously said, quote, "If photography is allowed to supplement art in some of its functions, it will soon supplant or corrupt it altogether, thanks to the stupidity of the multitude, which is its natural ally," unquote. In this class, we will examine the photographers who took the medium from its denigration as a mechanical art to its promotion and acceptance as a true art form with its own aesthetic. We'll keep the technical aspects to a minimum while looking at the aesthetic movements in photography, from pictorialism to modernism to straight photography, from its infancy in 1839 to the present day. As Alfred Stieglitz, who almost single-handedly made photography a recognizable art form in America, said, quote, "Every photograph has an equivalent idea or emotion attached to it," unquote. This is equally true of any artist. true art comes from the soul and the heart. Some use paint and canvas, some use a camera. As in my previous classes, we will look at numerous images that refute Mr. Baudelaire. Join me on Wednesday from 10 till noon at Columbia starting September the 20th for an entertaining and informative experience. As in my other classes, there will be no examinations. See you soon.
Hi, my name is Lori Kestner, and I will be teaching music along the Silk Road. As you know, the Silk Road was a series of trade routes that connected China with Central Asia, Northern India, and the Roman Empire. We tend to think of the Silk Road as a medium for transporting silks and teas, spices, and other material items. But musical ideas, as well as instruments, were also transported along these trade routes. In this course, we are going to discuss a variety of different genres along the Silk Road. Some of the highlights include the Sufi music of the whirling dervishes, the ragas and talas of India, Beijing opera, and my personal favorite, Tuvan throat singing. By the end of this course, you will be able to orally and visually identify a variety of different instruments. We will discuss the rich cultural and historical context of this music, and I will give you the skills necessary to be able to analyze and knowledgeably discuss this music. So, whether you are a seasoned musician or a curious beginner, come journey with us along the Silk Road this fall.
Hello, my name is Naomi Darenblum, and this fall I will be teaching Kings, Knights, Monks, and Adventurers, the epic story of the Crusaders at Blackrock in Germantown. This course is not merely an examination of the historical phenomenon that was the Crusades, the reconquest of Jerusalem, the establishment of several Crusader states in the Middle East, the rise of the religious military orders, the famous Templars and Teutonic Knights, and how it transformed Europe, but also a journey or deep examination into the life and adventures of the men and women, because there were also women, who were the Crusaders. Although we will use varied materials like chivalric poems and art, as well as, some articles, we will be relying mostly on recent work by historian Dan Jones, both on the Templars and religious orders and the Crusades. I hope to see you in the fall. It'll be a lot of fun.
My name is Steve Warmiel. I'm a law professor at American University, Washington College of Law, and I have the privilege in the fall of teaching a course called the U.S. Supreme Court, Some Greatest Hits. We'll almost certainly do Brown versus Board of Education, the 1954 school desegregation case, because there's so much story to tell about what led up to that decision and what happened after that decision. I'm thinking about a famous First Amendment case from 1964 called New York Times against Sullivan, which is one of the cornerstones of our free speech principles in this country, but also is a case that grows out of a fascinating period of the civil rights movement. And so that's the theme. The theme will be picking some fun, interesting, important cases, but not just looking at what they said legally. Also, I mean, what's better than telling a good yarn? And that's the goal, is to pick cases that tell a good story that will be interesting to students. And so I am hoping it will be a lot of fun.
I'm Carl Hampman. So this fall, I have developed a course that I think will be very interesting. It's a new way of looking at American society, at least for me, and that's by looking through sports at the highest level in American society, ways that it affects society, reflects society, and the interaction between the two, both in a positive sense and sometimes in a negative sense. We'll look at most of the major sports at the professional level, and also we'll look at the Olympic Games, where some of the most interesting and courageous steps have been taken by individual athletes to speak out about causes that were important to them. A little more specifically, as we look at these sports and their interaction, we're going to discuss politics in sports, race, gender, and transgender issues as well, which are getting a lot of publicity, the use of performance-enhancing drugs, or doping, if you will, disability sports, the big gambling industry, and sports as they are reflected and play such a large role in our mass media. We're going to take a look at some of the health consequences, such as opioid use, steroid use, and the all too frequent concussions in football. So I think it's going to be interesting. I think you'll learn things about sports and you'll learn things about our society. I think there's a lot of hopefully discussion that will take place. There's controversy involved here. And I'll sign off with saying, I'd be glad if you could join me for thrills, spills, and insights into our American society. Thank you.
Good afternoon, scholars. My name is Ed Ingebretson. I'm a professor at Georgetown University, where I have been since 1986, more or less. The course that I'll be working with Johns Hopkins, and scholars, thank you for being part of that, is loosely titled From White Supremacy and Christian Nationalism to the Capitol Coup. We'll be looking at addressing topics like a theory of history, white supremacy as a theory of history, how pink people became white. How did whatever body skin color, as an American European, understand that? How did we become white with a capital letter, if you are? For those who are Christian, how did Jesus become a white European? You look at his images. How did he learn to love the Confederacy? More pointedly, white nationalism, manifest destiny, and Christian nationalism. All of this is a very lot to think about in terms of a few weeks. It's probably a college course or two. And again, I do consider all of us here scholars. I will be learning as much from each of you and what you bring. And if nothing else, I can certainly provide a good bibliography of where to go from here. So again, good afternoon. Thank you. Peace to each of you. Have a good day. I hope to see you in the fall.
Hi, I'm Caroline Gordon, and I will be teaching Faces and Places in Sustainable Fashion this fall. I'm really excited about this topic. We're going to be bringing in different guests every week, from designers to founders to recycling hosts in the fashion industry, to talk about their expertise on this topic, both from the consumer standpoint as well as from a fashion retailer standpoint. There will be some required reading for the course. It's The State of the Fashion by McKinsey, which is a 100-page article that we can all read together and digest and talk about as a team. Look forward to having you. Thanks so much. Bye.
My name is Roger Brunyett. As you may hear from my voice, I am English, but I have lived over 50 years in America. The differences and similarities between our two countries, what George Bernard Shaw called two nations separated by a common language, have always fascinated me. So on Wednesday mornings next semester, I shall be offering a Zoom course about Britain and America in the 19th century called Our First Century Apart. We will concentrate mainly on my specialty, the arts, literature, painting, and music. But other aspects will come in too: social and economic concerns, industry, invention, the rise of the middle classes, and of individuals of enormous wealth, and all set against very different political backgrounds. Britain building her vast empire, America reft by civil war. I always encourage discussion in my in-person classes, and I hope we can do this on Zoom too. So instead of submitting you to passive lectures, I hope to offer a set of comparisons, perhaps a pair of paintings or poems or posters or songs or some other artifacts that carry a history, and invite you to discuss them as we tease out what that history might be and the different societies that created them. So come prepared to talk, to engage with friends, and to explore ideas. Further details will be posted on my website that you see on the screen, www.brunyate.com. Thank you.
Good morning, I'm Mel Goodman. I teach a course at Osher on international relations, and I've been doing it for the past 25 years. The focus of the course this year, and the reason why I think you might be interested in it, is that we're going to deal with the national security and foreign policy problems of the Biden administration. So we will start with a look at Ukraine from the standpoint of how do you end this war? How will this war end? Because right now there's no obvious ending, but there are some topics we can discuss. We will use the discussion of Ukraine to get into discussion of what to do about Russia, and particularly the Sino-Russian relationship, which has never been closer in the history of both of these countries. When you're dealing with the United States, Russia, and China, you're dealing with the three most important nuclear powers in the world. They must begin a dialogue. So we will discuss what arms control agreements can be pursued, what can we do about the ones that Donald Trump and George W. Bush broke, and where do we go from here? And then we will look at the Middle East, because the United States clearly is less relevant in the Middle East than it used to be. And looking at the greatest challenge of all, which is climate change. And climate change isn't coming. It's here. It's like COVID. It's already arrived. And COVID arrived in China. So it will be a very meaty semester, a very meaty course. There's certainly a lot to talk about. Thank you very much.
Hello. In this introductory oceanography OLLI class, we'll introduce you to the ocean in much the same way a first-year graduate student at URI's Graduate School of Oceanography is introduced to the ocean by presenting each of the four major subdisciplines of oceanography: geology, chemistry, physical oceanography, and biological oceanography. We'll start with geology, explaining the shape of the ocean basins and the sediments. The geological history of the Earth explains the distribution of earthquakes and volcanoes, as well as the major features of the ocean basins. Then we'll look at properties of seawater, how salt water is different than fresh water, and what controls the composition of seawater, how sound and light behave in the ocean. We'll look at water movements, the general ocean circulation, features like the Gulf Stream. Then we'll look at waves and tides. We'll look at how waves interact with geology to shape beaches. Then we'll look at the biology of the ocean, the major types of organisms that exist there. We will examine how the ocean circulation controls the abundance and distribution of organisms, especially fisheries. We'll finish up with some impacts on the ocean, including dead zones and the effects of climate change. Along the way, we'll toss in a bit of oceanography history and a quick look at some of the research tools used by oceanographers. I look forward to seeing you.
Good morning. I'm Laura Donnelly, a 10-year veteran of teaching at Osher, and this semester I'm going to be teaching España, the art, architecture, and cultural history of Spain from prehistory to Picasso. Spain not only gave us the New World, it provided a wealth of culture and intermingling heritages from pre-Roman times to the Islamic civilization of medieval times. Everyone knows the Alhambra. In this course, we're going to look into the differing kingdoms of the Iberian Peninsula and how they shape both modern Spain and the broader European scene. We find cave paintings, Roman remains, Arabic palaces and gardens, and some of the most consequential artists of Western civilization: El Greco, Velázquez, Goya, and Picasso, who lived in Paris but was Spanish, to name the most well-known. We'll also look at the characteristics of the various cities: Toledo, Madrid, Cordoba, Seville, Granada, Valencia, and of course, Barcelona, and the cultures that arose from each. Significant history will be reviewed from the Reconquista to the Inquisition, from the Armada to the Spanish Civil War and the present. There's no homework for this class other than looking at glorious pictures, and I will give you a lovely bibliography of works that you can use to enhance the course. and I look forward to seeing each one of you in November.
Hello, I'm Eric Gartman. This semester, I will be teaching a modern history of Israel, part 1, based off my book, Return to Zion. Israel is the world's only Jewish state and is constantly in the news. Yet its early years were fraught with danger, and it was not certain at all if the state would be established or survive. We will be examining the formation of the Jewish state and its early years as Israel struggled to survive in a sea of hostile neighbors. How and why the Zionists were able to achieve their state and win repeated wars against its larger neighbors will be the focus of our class. Along the way, we will meet key historical figures, including Theodore Herzl, David Ben-Gurion, Golda Meir, Moshe Dayan, and Ariel Sharon. So join me in seeking the answers to all of these questions. I look forward to seeing you in the fall. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Mary Dutterer. I'm going to be teaching a class on Alaska, but it's also going to include the Yukon and British Columbia a little bit, but kind of Alaska through the lens of film and literature. In kind of a historical timeline, I'm going to start by kind of honing in on a little bit about prehistory. The second period we're going to be looking at is exploration. Then we're going to go into the Klondike Gold Rush. Then the fourth period we're going to be looking at is World War II in Alaska, specifically things like the Aleutian Islands campaign, but other things that were going on, which was covered not only in documentary film, but also a lot of different nonfiction. And then the fifth period we'll be looking at is the more contemporary period, where we're going to be looking at how people deal with Alaska today through literature. There are tons and tons of books that are out there of people that experience Alaska and just have to write about it. So we're going to be looking at that. We're going to be looking at why, when you talk to Alaskans, they hate the film Into the Wild. So we'll look at that as well. So yeah, if you've ever been there on a cruise ship or traveled through or are just curious about Alaska, this is going to be a really nice gateway for you to learn about a lot about little bits of Alaska. So I hope you'll look to join us and take care.
I'm Jim Applebaum, the moderator of the Essays discussion group. I want to tell you a little bit about it. It's been said that the golden age of the essay, and essays are always short, nonfiction prose writing that purports to be honest and truthful, that golden age occurred between 1945 and 1970 in America. But I believe that today, perhaps since the turn of the 21st century in America, I believe that we're in a second golden age. The internet has a lot to do with it. So does social and cultural upheavals. So does the amazing cadre of good nonfiction writers who are communicating through legacy and novel media. Our own OSHA Essays discussion group, now in its 26th consecutive year as an annual offering, is an active conversation in which everyone chooses to participate. For each weekly class, we read, then discuss 2 published essays. They're often labeled opinion or op-ed, analysis, commentary, review, letter, report. Some are simply informative, explaining a topic and pattern or event, and others are meant to push us to think differently or reinforce our understanding of a topic or a subject. Some are intensely personal. Here are our group objectives. We encourage greater discrimination in understanding and analysis. We raise and sustain lively conversation. We maintain an active and thoughtful, often challenging conversation of topical interest within a civil and often entertaining class environment. To maintain the needed face-to-face conversation, enrollment is limited to 20 individuals. Consider experiencing our fall 2023 group. Thanks.
Hi, I'm Judy Scott Feldman. I'm an art historian, and I'll be teaching in the fall in person on Wednesdays from 1 to 3. I'll be teaching a class I'm calling Explorations of Art History. The purpose of the class is to really get us to look closely at art over history, over time, and think about the ways in which critics sometimes confound us and sometimes alarm us with what they say is great art, and sometimes they delight us. In this class, I want to go back to a class I taught in 2012, which really has us look carefully at art and ask ourselves, why do we love this work of art? Why do we hate this work of art? What is it that makes the critics choose? What are the historical circumstances that have made the artist think this way? And it really goes back to two basic themes I'm going to focus on. It's about the imitation of the natural world, the visual world we see, or the imitation of what we believe to be an underlying reality. And this goes back to Plato and Aristotle. Art is an imitation of nature, but is nature itself worthy of study, or is there something behind nature, spiritual something, that we should be trying to gather? And we particularly will see this when we look at modern art and contemporary art with abstraction. So I hope to see you all in the fall. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Ken Walsh, and I'll be teaching the PR Presidency course this fall. I just wanted to give you a brief introduction, and here it goes. The modern presidency has a clear defining characteristic. It's built on the foundation of public relations. For presidents to succeed, they must lead and persuade the public, and Americans today relate to their leaders almost exclusively through the media, particularly television, and to an increasing extent, the internet. So it should come as no surprise that politicians have developed specific tools of strategic communication and public relations in order to connect with the people. In this course, we'll discuss how the most effective presidents learn that there's a key difference between shallow celebrity or simple fame and consequential celebrity, which is using fame to gain support for one's ideas, agenda, and values. Theodore Roosevelt understood this more than a century ago when he used the presidency as a bully pulpit. Franklin D. Roosevelt was an excellent communicator, and he lifted the nation out of fear and pessimism during the Depression through his fireside chats and the force of his personality. Other top presidential communicators included John F. Kennedy, Ronald Reagan, and Barack Obama. This course will analyze the techniques of these presidents and various others, including those whose communication techniques and skills were lacking. We'll also examine the controversial presidency of Donald Trump, a showman who shattered many of the norms for presidential communication, and we'll discuss the more traditional PR techniques of Joe Biden. It all amounts to a review of the presidency as an institution through the prism of how presidents use PR to be more effective. I look forward to seeing you this fall.
Hi, my name is Rob Jacobs, and I will be teaching a course this fall at Osher called Cormac McCarthy's Blood Meridian. The course will focus on Cormac McCarthy, of course, the famous American writer, widely considered to be one of the greatest living writers, and often compared with Faulkner and Melville and people of that stature. We will be looking at his magnum opus, Blood Meridian, which was published in 1985. The subtitle is Blood Meridian, or The Evening Redness in the West. The Blood Meridian is, again, considered by many critics to be one of the greatest novels of the 20th century. It's based on a true story of a scalping expedition that took place in 1849 in the western part of the United States. And it's really an exploration of the American obsession with violence, with westward expansion, with ideas such as manifest destiny, and sort of the real life repercussions behind the mythology of these ideas. We will also be reading two other McCarthy novels in this same vein, All the Pretty Horses, which takes place in the 1940s, and No Country for Old Men, which takes place in 1980. So we will follow a through line from the 19th century into the early mid part of the 20th century, and then the latter half of the 20th century, and follow these sort of coherent ideas that McCarthy is exploring and interrogating throughout these three novels. And so thank you. I hope you'll join me in this class in the fall. So thank you very much.
I'm Eleanor Clift, and I'll be teaching a course in the fall for Osher that is titled The Contenders, Field of Dreams or Nightmare. This is a lead up to a presidential election year, and polls show that a lot of people aren't really excited about a rematch of Donald Trump versus Joe Biden. But that seems to be, at the time of this taping, where we're headed. And so when the class starts meeting in mid-September, we will already have a couple of presidential debates behind us, certainly on the Republican side, and we will have some assurances of what lies ahead on the Democratic side, whether President Biden will be confronted with any challenges or whether he will skate through and get the nomination, even though polls show more than 70% of Democrats aren't that eager about his reelection. So I've lived long enough to know plenty of presidential elections where we have muttered, oh, it's the lesser of two evils. We're always hoping for that once in a lifetime candidate to come on the white horse, be it Ronald Reagan if you're a Republican or Barack Obama if you're a Democrat. This election looming next year is about more important things than personality. It's about democracy, the fate of democracy. It's about the challenges facing this country, from climate change to unprecedented immigration to gun violence. So there'll be lots to talk about, and I think many weeks we'll feel depressed about the news around us, but there's always some good news somewhere. As the old saying goes, there's a pony in there somewhere. So I hope to see a lot of you in the fall. Have a great summer, and I look forward to chatting with you all about our country's challenges and the future that lies ahead. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Jonathan Coopersmith, and I'll have the honor of teaching the past and future history of the commercialization of space this fall. This course is going to examine the history of space commercialization, past, present, and future, from the perspective not just of what people predicted would happen, but what did not happen, and how would have, and why it didn't happen. Space commercialization has mostly remained a promise, and we'll be asking why. And we'll be talking also about what is happening now and some of the predictions, hopes, and efforts in the future. There'll be some interesting suggested reading, both from the past as well as present, and predictions of the future. We'll also listen to some of the leading figures who led previous efforts to profit from space and are leading them now. Thank you for thinking about this course. I hope you will find it as interesting as I have. I look forward to meeting you this fall. Take care. Thank you.
I'm Edward Friedman. I'm a retired professor of Spanish and comparative literature at Vanderbilt University. I did my undergraduate studies at the University of Virginia and my graduate work at Johns Hopkins. I've taught 4 courses in the Osher program at Vanderbilt and 1 in the UVA program. My virtual 6-week course at Hopkins will be a Don Quixote sampler. I will attempt to capture the essence of Cervantes' novel, which was published in 2 parts in 1605 and 1615, and which consists of about 1,000 pages. The course will include readings from the novel, about 35 to 40 pages per week, and class discussion rather than lectures. We will use the Edith Grossman translation available in paper and Kindle. Supplementary materials will be distributed to each participant. So that every member of the group will feel comfortable about joining the discussion, the class size will be limited. Don Quixote has engaged readers for over 400 years, and there's a reason for that. The narrative goes in seemingly endless directions, It is self-referential, evoking the idea of art about art, yet deals with the real world as well. It's funny but profound. It's humorous but serious, even philosophical. It's entertaining, but so much more. There are no prerequisites for the course. One only has to be willing to do the reading, to attend the sessions, and I would hope to share views with colleagues. Don Quixote is the consensus greatest novel ever, for a reason, or for many reasons. Let's explore why. Thanks very much for your attention.
Grüß Gott, as they would say in Vienna. I'm Jonathan Polewski, and it's my pleasure to talk to you for about a minute and change, which is all they will allow me, about Vienna, the city of my musical dreams. Well, what's it all about? Well, it's all about this incredible proliferation of amazing composers and performers that happen in the capital of the Austro-Hungarian Habsburg Empire. In the first Viennese classical period, we have Mozart and Haydn and Beethoven and Schubert, and in the second, we have Schoenberg and Webern, as well as Berg, and in between we have Brahms and Schumann and Mendelssohn. All of these people are hugely affected by this amazing city that they live in. It's not just a city about croissants and coffee, it's a city also about some of the most amazing music in the Western canon. And why not enjoy the incredible light music of all the Strausses that lived in Vienna? So between all of the incredibly symphonic compositions and the popular Viennese dance compositions, this is going to make for 12 weeks of unbelievable music. You'll have to bring your own whipped cream and your own croissants and pastries, but I will provide the music, I promise, and I'm looking forward to it a lot, and I will see you then. And now I must leave you, as they say, tschüss.
Hello, my name is Bob Stiefel. Many of you know me since I've been an Osher at JHU member for a few years. I'll be teaching a course on electricity, electronics, and equipment in the fall semester. I taught this course 5 years ago, and this will be an update of that. I'll cover the history and principles of electricity and electronics. Then I'll talk about the history, current status, and future of electrical and electronic devices. This will include household appliances, communications equipment, computers, and medical equipment. You'll gain an understanding of how electricity and electronics work, learn some interesting history of the pioneers and their discoveries in these fields, understand how common electrical equipment works, and appreciate what electronic breakthroughs are going to be providing in the near future. One of the things that I particularly enjoyed the last time I taught this course was the good questions in class. I may not be able to answer all of them on the spot, but I enjoy researching questions and answering them in the next class. I'm looking forward to in-person classes in Baltimore and hope to have some interesting discussions.
Hi, my name is Patrick Crossland, and I am thrilled to have the opportunity to teach the first installment of rock history in the fall. So this course explores the evolution of rock and roll from its blues, jazz, country, and folk origins through the 1960s. We're going to focus our attention on various genres, including soul, folk rock, British rock, psychedelic rock, and early heavy metal, all within the context of cultural, social, and political developments. Participants in the class with little or no formal training in music need not worry. Styles and evolution of the music covered in the course will be discussed in non-technical ways with an emphasis on basic music fundamentals, including things like melody, harmony, texture, rhythm, instrumentation, and structure. We'll listen to a lot of music and trace connections and influences from one generation of popular artists to another. I do hope you can join us. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Jim O'Leary, and this fall I'll be doing a course that's called The Moon in Art, Science, and Culture. The Moon in Art, we'll be looking at some famous works like Van Gogh's Starry Night, J.M.W. Turner's art, and dozens of others where the moon has an appearance in art, either as a sort of source of light or a symbol of hope or something else. So lots of examples of that. We'll take a tour of the moon. I want to show you the features that you can see by eye or with a pair of binoculars, or if you're lucky enough to have a small telescope or a friend with one. Things we see as the moon goes through its phases, the craters, the mountains, the vast seas that are lava seas that have frozen over. We can even see the Apollo landing sites from orbit where the astronauts walked, and we can see their footsteps left behind on the moon. We'll see how Shakespeare referred to the moon in his plays. Look at Clair de Lune and Moonlight, some famous pieces of music. And look at the work of Da Vinci and Galileo and how they interpreted the moon. Of course, we'll treat phases and tides and eclipses. There's a great eclipse of the moon coming up next year in April, so I can tell you where to go to watch that. You don't have to travel far to see this beautiful total eclipse of the sun caused by the moon. And historically, a couple of characters have moon connections. Harriet Tubman, Paul Revere, the sinking of the Titanic has some moon connections as well. And recently, in the last couple of years, we've discovered that there's water on the moon. We used to think it was a dry world, but now we know there's water in hidden craters. And as we return to the moon, that's water that we can use for resources for the astronauts. And we'll also look at where the moon came from, how it formed, why it formed the way it did, and how it came to look the way it is today. So that's kind of in a nutshell what the course is about. Hope you can join me. It's the Moon in Art, Science, and Culture.
Hi, everyone. My name is Roy Justice, and I'm a singing historian. I love music and I love history, and I enjoy putting those two things together to kind of explain how and why we do some of the things we do today. In this class, titled Can You Hear Me Now? Milestones in Communication, we're going to be looking at the history and development of human interaction from ancient cave paintings through today's most advanced heads-up displays, and have some fun doing so. Music has always been one of my favorite means of communication, so during the class I'll be singing songs that relate to the topic in some way. For instance, a 7-wire telegraph system was invented by David Alter in 1836. 1 year later, Samuel Morse, for whom the Morse code is named, invented the much more efficient single-wire telegraph device and patented his version in 1837. By the late 1840s, telegraph poles were accenting the landscape and profoundly accelerating the speed with which communication could be accomplished over long distances. During this time, Stephen Foster's song, "Oh Susanna," became one of the most popular songs in the country. We'll sing "Oh Susanna" together, well, as together as we can in a Zoom class, and we'll talk about how the song influenced future generations of musicians and songwriters. The story of communications technology is a fascinating one, and I look forward to sharing it with you. Oh, Susanna, oh, don't you cry for me, for I come from Alabama with my banjo on my knee. See you in class.
Hello, Johns Hopkins OLLI members. My name is Heather Dudley, and this fall I will be offering a class on the impeachment of Andrew Johnson. You know, the dust had hardly settled on the Civil War battlefields, and yet again our country was thrust into another constitutional crisis. The assassination of Abraham Lincoln lifted into the presidency the poorly educated, irascible, Southern sympathizing Andrew Johnson into the presidency. Unfortunately, his ideas about how to treat the defeated South and what to do about the freed slaves were completely different from those held by the Republicans in Congress. Eventually, the Republicans come up with a cause for impeachment. Now, this is an important time to study for those interested in the history of the 1860s, but it's also pertinent to us because in the last 50 years, our country has looked at the impeachment of a president 4 times: Richard Nixon, Bill Clinton, and of course Donald Trump twice. And in those recent impeachments, we grappled with the same questions that were central to the impeachment of Andrew Johnson. What is an impeachable offense? What does high crimes and misdemeanors mean? How did the framers mean for impeachment to be utilized, and how did it get into the Constitution? I really look forward to seeing you in the fall. Bye for now.
Hi, my name is Bill Florman. I'm going to be teaching a 12-week class in Baltimore on Philip Roth. It's called Philip Roth, The American Trilogy. The American Trilogy are 3 novels that Philip Roth wrote between 1997 and 2000. American Pastoral, which is a Pulitzer Prize winning novel and actually my favorite of all Philip Roth's novels. I Married a Communist, and a novel called The Human Stain. This, I think, is probably the greatest work of one of the greatest American novelists. They deal with really the effect of history on individual lives. They deal with themes like the Vietnam War, the McCarthy period, racism, political correctness. There's a lot of material to be discussed. It's all told by the narrator and, in many ways, the alter ego of Philip Roth, Nathan Zuckerman. And some of you may have taken a course that I gave several years ago called Zuckerman Bound, which was 4 novels narrated by and about Nathan Zuckerman. So it's in some ways a continuation of that. Like that course, there will be a great deal of discussion. Students will be expected to do a fair amount of reading, and I think I will resume a tradition in that class of beginning each class with somebody telling a joke. So it should be fun, and I think an opportunity to read some of the greatest work by one of the greatest novelists this country has produced. So I look forward to seeing you there. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Ernest Liotti, and I will be teaching a 6-week course on the Art Deco style, essentially the period between the 2 world wars. Art Deco was, like many art forms, a reaction to the previous art form, which was Art Nouveau, which was very flowery and sinewy and asymmetric. And then the Paris exhibit of 1925, which was the exhibit of decorative arts, and that's where we get the term Art Deco, came out with this new modern style. In America, many great designers took that style and changed it to make it more of a streamlined modern, which is what the American period is often called. And we will be discussing architecture, we will be discussing decorative objects, furniture. I have DVDs and videos on the building of the Chrysler Building, the iconic Empire State Building. And then I think what will be a great big fun and draw is a tour of my home on the last day of class, which will highlight my collection of American Art Deco. I was featured in the magazine Antiques in 2010, and we will have a good time. So I hope to see you all there. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Bill Berry, and I'm excited to be coming back to Osher in the fall for another Movies of the 1930s. We're going to be having 6 exciting movies, including Night Nurse, which is show you the pre-code sex symbols of the period, including Barbara Stanwyck and Joan Blundell, and an obscure actor, I don't think he'll ever amount to anything, Clark Gable. We're also going to show a wonderful movie, The Depression, Wild Boys of the Road, about young men who are displaced and are out looking for work. And unfortunately, some of these movies are very timely today, as that one is. The other one that's very timely is Black Legion, which Humphrey Bogart plays a factory worker who loses out on a promotion to an immigrant and joins the Klan. We're going to have The Emperor Jones, which shows the attempts by Paul Robeson and others to break through the segregation of the movies industry of the 30s and of the society in general. We're going to have a great movie, Mr. Smith Goes to Washington, which many of you have already seen, but it's certainly, again, a man who wants to challenge the political structure as only James Stewart can. And finally, we're going to have the first full-length attempt by Hollywood to challenge Adolf Hitler when you see Edward G. Robinson in I Was a Nazi Spy. And so these are exciting movies. We're going to have great discussions. We'll have some historical background. And I look forward to seeing all of you in the class.
Hi, everyone. I'm Dorothea Israel Wolfson, and I'll be teaching a course in Osher this fall called Alexander Hamilton and the American Experience. You know, Hamilton had largely become known as the forgotten founding father. The U.S. Treasury was about to remove his image from the $10 bill in 2015 until Lin-Manuel Miranda's hit musical Hamilton returned him to the spotlight and took him off the chopping block of the U.S. Mint. But it's really interesting because most informed historians have always viewed Hamilton as the most consequential, or one of the most consequential of the founders. You know, Hamilton gave life to the idea of American nationalism before it ever existed. He saw the future of America and its great potential more than any other founder, and he crafted the policies to make this vision a reality. So this course will seek to rediscover Hamilton and how he shaped the America that we live in today. We will begin the class by viewing Miranda's musical Hamilton in our first class session. This musical will serve as an outline or framework for what's to follow in the class, which is a delving deeper into Hamilton's fascinating, flawed, and productive life by reading selections from Chernow's biography of Hamilton, as well as reading some of the primary writings of Hamilton himself. I hope we will come away from this class with a better appreciation of not only Hamilton, but the American experience he gave shape to and which we all live in today. Thank you, and I hope to see you in the fall.
Hi, my name is Mary Mannix, and I'm going to be the instructor for Introduction to Genealogy for Beginning and Experienced Family Historians. What we're going to be covering in this class is really basic methodology, which can be useful for people who are just starting out their genealogy or people who've done it for years upon years upon years. We're going to go in depth about a variety of different sources, such as vital records, the census, looking at church records, looking at published family histories. Again, it would be really useful for people who are just starting their genealogy journey. And if you've been doing genealogy for 5, 10, 15, 20 years, it would be a good time to step back, to take a good hard look at what you've already done, and to make sure that you've covered the basics. And even if you have covered the basics, it'll also be a really good way to start troubleshooting those holes that you have, those brick walls that you have. So hopefully it'll be, well, not hopefully, it will be useful for genealogists and family historians at all levels. Look forward to spending time with many of you, and there's a good time to begin your genealogy. It's never too late and it's never too early. Thank you.
My name is John McCarthy. I'm State's Attorney for Montgomery County. I'm dedicated my entire professional life to making our community safer. And some of the rhetoric in the campaign says that we need more diversionary programs. The reality is we have more diversionary programs than anybody in the state. 5,000 people a year are diverted out of the criminal justice system. We need to, some say, end cash bonds. We don't use cash bonds in Montgomery County. Have community prosecutors. We already do. Establish a gun safety task force to address guns in our community. I already have. Establish mental health course. I did that 7 years ago. Have a reentry program for people leaving jails in Montgomery County. We did that 45 years ago. Have a conviction integrity unit. I've done that. I have a diverse workforce. There are people from 70 different ethnic and racial backgrounds that are in my office. We simply are the best office in Maryland. We've been recognized by the Anti-Defamation League on 2 separate occasions with their prestigious Shield Award. I teach in the community at Johns Hopkins and Montgomery College. I've taught over 5,000 people who live in this community. We have constantly innovated through the years I've been state's attorney, being the first to independently investigate police shootings and the first to halt the prosecution of marijuana. Time has come for us to come together to address issues of guns, gun safety, school safety, and youth violence.
Good morning. I'm Barry Schoenfeld, and I am one of the OLLI instructors at Johns Hopkins. I have been an instructor actually for, about 4 years out west before COVID. And once COVID hit, I was able to teach cross country, which I'm doing. I'm delighted to be able to tell you about a brand new course I am premiering for Johns Hopkins University, if you will, called The Life and Times of Robert Mapplethorpe. Now, some of us know a little bit, very few of us know all of his life story, which started off as a dirt poor teenager in New York City, met the famous rocker Patti Smith, went on to develop collages, Polaroids, flowers, ever before he ever got to his controversial stage, if you will. We're going to cover it all. We're going to use videos, we're going to use photographs, we're going to use quotes, and I'm going to try to take you into the mind of Robert Mapplethorpe, which is one of our most creative photographers of all time, is fascinating to me. So I hope you will join us. The catalog will be out shortly, and I look forward to meeting you online.
Hello, everyone. I'm Dr. Stephanie Slower, and I shall be teaching a course about our amazing universe. Now, you don't need an astronomy background to enjoy this course because we start with our very favorite constellations, like the Big Dipper, the Little Dipper, Orion, all of our favorites. Then we move on to some of the others and also into a little bit of the zodiac, because many people are interested in the stars that are aligned for Aries or Virgo or Sagittarius or whatever your sign may be. And there is so much in the way of not only religion, but also mythology that's tied into. Remember, astronomy started developing way back when, before TV, radio, internet, and all those things. People used to look up in the sky and make up stories or link the constellations to their favorite items. And from that, we will look at one of the favorites for many people when they're out hiking or camping, to look for meteorites. So we'll discuss where they originate and what are your chances of actually finding one. And we'll also take a peek from a far distance at a place everybody wants to know about, where maybe extraterrestrials came, or at least their spacecraft, Area 51 in Nevada. Thank you.
I teach the memoir seminar, which is modeled after the Johns Hopkins University writing seminars. Our memoir seminar meets every Thursday from 1 to 3 on Zoom. Our members come from all over Maryland, Pennsylvania, New York, and Delaware. We write and publish our memories in stories and poems. We write them for ourselves, our families, and our friends. We want to leave a legacy telling our descendants who we are, what we did, what we thought. We hope our record of our successes and failures will help future generations. Other people have their own perspectives about our lives, but we are the only ones who know ourselves. This course is an opportunity to let the world know what we know and what we've been up to for the past 60-some years. Join the course. It's time to provide your version of events. After all, it's your life. If you have any questions, email me at dsharper@gmail.com. Thanks so much. I hope to see you in the memoir seminar. Bye-bye.
My name is Bill Lewis, and I am the chair of the Osher Guest Lecture Series. Every fall, we offer this signature course of distinguished speakers who share their expertise, ideas, and experiences with our class. The class is on Zoom, which allows us to host speakers from all over the country. Our roster this fall will include a return of two favorites from last year. We will see a visual update on the journey of the James Webb Space Telescope, and Bill Taylor, the former ambassador to Ukraine, will provide a candid assessment on the war in that country. We will also have some new speakers on the U.S. Supreme Court, China, gun violence in America, and government ethics, just to name a few. But perhaps the most appealing aspect of the guest lectures is the robust question and answer period from the class that follows the speaker's remarks. I know I am looking forward to hearing from the U.S. Capitol Police to hear their perspective regarding the January 6th attack on the Capitol. and I'm sure there'll be many questions posed by our class that day. So I hope you will join us on Zoom on Thursday afternoons this fall. It promises to be a very informative and engaging lecture series. Thank you.